Mr. Johnson, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd ask that a paper written by the ACLU on the 1033 program for purposes of this hearing be submitted as for the record without objection, and also the ACLU report entitled War Comes Home, the Excessive Militarization of American Policing, both these documents for the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. And gentlemen, thank you all for being here today. You both have read the legislation that I have proposed?
I have not.
And,
yes.
And you agree that it does not call for a ban on the transfer of all firearms from under this program. It just for that which is 50 caliber or more.
Yes.
And you're both familiar with that?
Yes.
And
I am not. So
okay. Well, would you think that that is an appropriate restriction on this program to limit the amount or to limit the firepower of the weaponry to 50 calibers or below?
Yes, that's fine.
That's reasonable. Do you think so, also, Mr. Bierman?
Yeah.
And also with respect to armored military vehicles, flashbang grenades, drones, silencers. Do either one of you have a reason that would justify the transfer of a silencer to civilian law enforcement? Is there a civilian law enforcement need for silencers?
In certain situations, in the tactical situations, there are. But that's very limited.
But under the current program, it's unlimited in terms of what agency can request and receive a silencer.
Yeah.
And that should not be. No. Don't you agree?
Yes, sir.
You, Mr. Bierman?
I think it depends. I think it's very hard to come up with a broad rule that applies to all law enforcement agencies. Law enforcement agencies in this country can buy silencers legally.
Well, certainly this legislation would not preclude a state or local law enforcement agency from going out and purchasing silencers. But the question is, should we be distributing them direct from the battlefield to the streets of our nation? And you believe that that the transfer of silencers is something that should be restricted under the 1033 program?
So as my testimony indicated, I think that the program needs to be re-examined, and there needs to be some thoughtful decision about just that question, whether or not certain kinds of equipment should or should not be put on that list. As the Admiral said, you can't get an F-16 off this program. You can't get an Apache helicopter. Whoever makes those decisions,
you should not be able to get a MRAP.
And that may be a decision that other people can, but as long as it is on that list and as long as it's part of that program, I think you have to look at an individual agency's rationale for why they need that piece of equipment.
And certainly when a local governing authority can take that issue up and decide whether or not citizens of that jurisdiction want to have that kind of equipment on the streets, then they can go out and spend the money and purchase it. Correct?
I completely agree that the local authorities, local elected officials should have that input.
So what we're talking about here is not limiting a law enforcement agency from having this kind of equipment. We're just simply talking about the transfer of it from the military or DOD to the local law enforcement agency. And I want to make sure that we all agree that that is a reasonable course of action to take. You know, as far as flashbang grenades are concerned, those require specialized training in terms of when, how, and where to use, correct?
That's correct.
And so to ban the military from being able to transfer that kind of equipment directly to a state or local law enforcement agency, or even to a state university law enforcement agency. I mean, we had the Kent State situation take place, can you imagine what would have happened in 1970 if this program had been in existence and if the Kent State Police Department had all of this kind of weaponry that they could get under this program and then used it against the students? Can y'all imagine what America would be like?
Absolutely.
And so I think you must agree that we must have some limits on this 1033 program. And I look forward to working with you to fine tune what we have put in place. You know, I think we really need to look seriously about this, and it is resulting in a militarization of our police forces. And I thank the chairman for his indulgence.